the episode, everybody. Welcome to another Europreneur podcast with myself, Nir Zaval from EO Israel. And today I have a special guest. It's funny, he joined less than a year ago to EO, and we've met already in two different continents, if I'm not mistaken. Once at the Web Summit, and just last week at Collision. And then we said, you know what? Let's have this call. Let's have this discussion. So, Jonathan, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And thanks for inviting me to this podcast. I'm really excited.
Yeah, amazing. It's so great to have someone from Munich finally on the episode.
So I'm the first from Munich?
First one. First one,
Oh,
my friend.
okay. That's an honor.
But you
I'll
promise
do my best.
you'll come back for the like 300th episode or something.
Okay, yes,
After you sell a few companies, you come back and tell us all the stories you've had. Um,
exactly.
so I always start by asking people to kind of introduce themselves easily, like an elevator pitch if you could. 60 seconds, tell me anything you want. Go for it.
Sure. So basically, I'm Jonathan. My friends call me Johnny, and I'm half German, half Latino, which is itself a bit controversial because it's like 180 degrees different. So my mom is from Ecuador, and my dad is from Berlin. So in any case, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of and founder of Spree Interactive. And yeah, I mean, I joined EO a year ago. I was before that 4 years Accelerator, and I must say that really helped me to bring me as a person, but also bring the people around me and also my business to the next level. And that's also why I'm really excited to be here, share the stories um, I have with others, and hopefully to give some inspiration and some food for thought.
I have a question. Being a German has these certain attributes. Are you more Latino when you get angry in the business or more German?
That's a good question. So I obviously try to cherry pick, and I always make fun of my kind of a combination and say I try to work as hard as a German and to party as a Latino, to pick the best sides. But in essence, obviously, it is um, in every aspect always a challenge, but also a blessing to have these very different point of views. And the funny thing is that whenever for too long in Germany, I always think, oh no, I'm not really 100% a German. And whenever I'm too long in South America, I say, oh no, I'm not really 100% a Latino. So I guess it's really a mix. And yeah, thanks. Thankfully enough, I'm actually not that angry. So I wouldn't be able to tell you whether I'm more angry the German or the Latino way.
You grew up in Berlin. Why did you move to Munich? That's where your business is based now.
So basically, the family from my father, they're in Berlin. However, we moved to Munich already long time ago, like just after the Berlin Wall fell, so 89. And essentially just because my mom really liked the castles around Munich, the Bavarian castles, which is the picture many Latinos have from Germany, I guess. So that's the main reason why we ended up in Munich. But looking back, I'm obviously very thankful. So I still have a lot of family in Berlin, but Munich is definitely a great spot to found a company and also to live.
Why did you start this company?
The current company actually is one example where actually technology seeks application. So basically, I'm an industrial engineer, and I've founded a couple of successful and unsuccessful companies before, and the company I ran before that one actually was a bit light on tech IP, and I somehow said, okay, I'm an engineer. I really want now deep tech, so to say. And Germany, I would say, has so much potential when it comes to commercializing deep tech. but the Germans are, I guess, not very well known globally for marketeers. So they develop great things, but others are much better in marketing the technologies. And that's where I saw a lot of potential. And I basically went to a tech conference knowing that there are four very big applied research institutes in Germany: Leibniz, Gesellschaft Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, Max Planck Gesellschaft, and Helmholtz. So four very big ones in different fields, like from life science to MP3 compression technology. And that's actually one of this applied research institute, which was on the tech conference. And I just approached them and said, hey, you developed the MP3 compression technology, so I know you're cutting edge. What technologies do you have which are about to be commercially ready for the market, so that I can help you doing that? And then basically they came with a couple of options, and one of them was this technology which they called back then holodeck 4.0.
So you're basically helping them promote that?
And then basically how it then unfolded is November 2015, I then visited the Applied Research Institute, and then I was a consultant for 2 years on how to commercialize the technology. And during these 2 years, I met my co-founder, my now two co-founders, two former researchers, and then we basically had a 2 year period where we get to know each other, and actually then decided to, okay, let's do it, and let's commercialize this technology.
Here's a question, or two questions that come to mind. One is, I meet a lot of consultants who start a business. Why not stay a consultant if it's a good business? And my second is, how important do you think it is that you have met your two co-founders and had some time to spend together before launching the business?
What was the first question? Sorry.
Why not stay a consultant?
Why not stay a consultant? That's a good question. So I started my career actually as a consultant in a boutique consulting company for the oil and gas and mining industry, very international, in Perth, and then in Johannesburg, in New York, um, and um, my learning curve at some point flattened, and then basically I also felt that, yeah, that this is a nice thing to do for a while, but I realized that that's not my destiny, kind of. So obviously it's a interesting job and all that, and definitely you can learn a lot and do many things, have a lot of impact. But just I personally decided that I wanted to, after 3 years of being a freelance consulting, I then basically stopped it on purpose, and then I just began my first companies.
And your co-founders,
So that
do you believe it's important to spend time together before you start a business?
so that was the first question. And the second question, actually, I think it is. I mean, it is quite a very comfortable position we were in, because usually, obviously, when you, like most of the times, you have a day job, and then you have the night job, which is founding your company. So you obviously need to survive somehow, and at least for the first company. And then in this case, actually, we were paid, both the back then researchers and me as the commercial guy, to actually work on prepare the actually the spin-off. So therefore, it was a perfect time, 2 years, to basically see whether we can get along. But obviously, I mean, there are different ways to do that. I mean, you don't need to physically, like literally work on the same project. Either you have been colleagues, or you've studied together. So, but I found it very, very important, because obviously one of the failure um, factors of any startup is just that at some point there's misalignment amongst the co-founders.
It's have you ever had a business where you were the solopreneur, you were alone?
Actually, the first consulting period, I was a freelance, but that's not really like an entrepreneur, I would say. I mean, I was technically a entrepreneur, a freelance, but with a steady flow of clients from the mining industry. But other than that, I was always with other co-founders.
It's interesting. I interviewed Robert from EO Holland, from the Dutch chapter from Amsterdam. And he defined that all the freelancers that work for him, like consultants or people like that, are by definition freelancers, but not entrepreneurs. They're not building a business. They're not scaling. They're not hiring. They're not in charge of other people's kind of well-being in life. And I tend to agree with it. How do you see it?
Yeah, I agree. That's why I wouldn't classify that freelance period as a entrepreneurial engagement. I mean, I was asked from the partners of the other offices to open the Munich office and to head that. That would then have had more entrepreneurial spirit because then obviously you would have equity stake and you would have to hire people, train people, bring in business, new business, and all that. But I actually declined that kind offer and then decided to do like completely different businesses, like not consulting businesses, which itself can be also very attractive. Yeah, don't get me
It's
wrong.
interesting. You and I met at Web Summit and now in Collision. How do you find these events or conferences? You go there, do you know exactly what you're looking for? Do you set up meeting up fronts? What's the tip to optimize these events?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and indeed very needed if you go to conferences which have 10, 20, up to 50,000 people attendees, because literally you can just get completely lost. So in my case, actually both times was fundraising. So therefore, I had a very razor sharply defined goal and also very razor sharply defined preparation, follow up, and basically agenda. So I was literally hanging out the whole the whole two conferences we met, Web Summit 2021 and Collision 2022, in the pitch book investor lounge, where the likelihood of meeting an investor is obviously highest. I scheduled a couple of meetings upfront, obviously, um, but the best meetings just came up by literally meeting people at the coffee bar.
At the end, it feels like in many of these events, it's about the social parts, right? Like when you can go up to anyone with a tag, ask where they are, where they're from, and start a conversation.
Exactly, because I mean there were virtual versions of all these events, I think, or a couple of these events, but it's never the same. And I mean, everybody knows it with the email overflow. I mean, and even these apps, these networking apps, there's also an overflow of requests and messages. So many of the investors I spoke to, they basically said that they were so overwhelmed that they wouldn't actually they would stop replying to messages and then just go there, meet with a couple of people they wanted to meet, and then also go with the flow. And I tend to try to have most of my scheduled meetings the first day, because then out of these meetings, basically, then other things derive. Like for example, there's a fit with the one investor, but he might know somebody who's at the conference I should speak to, and all that. So that's my strategy, let's say. And yeah, I mean, it could be whatever the goal is. I mean, my secondary goal was PR, but in the order of magnitude 1 to 10. So basically, fundraising was by far the bigger one. I mean, whatever the goal is, to literally, yeah, exactly watch out where you find these people you want to speak to. Yeah.
But I like the fact that you're saying let's have a predefined goal, let's work beforehand. I love the laying the ground. I remember the first event actually I ever attended that was outside of my country was in Munich and was the biggest ski and snowboard event. The big all the brands came and I remember
ISPO.
yeah,
Okay.
and I remember we came very well prepared. And my boss at the time told me, don't look to your right or to your left. We have 2 days. We have all the meetings. And on the third day, you can walk and see whatever you want. because if not, we'll get confused, we won't get it done. And we had a list of all the meetings we had, and everything was on a tight schedule. But what was interesting also is that I noticed that a lot of people go out partying in the evening. And that's also a great way of networking in the conference, but outside of the conference, right?
Mhm. Exactly. So I actually did exactly the same. So because I mean, collision was 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think at 5 p.m. we were all asked to go out of the venue, and obviously, I mean, 50 people, 50,000 people in town, very interesting people. I mean, obviously, you want to continue the networking, and then I had every day relevant after parties or after receptions scheduled. In my case, founder VC. One was called Toronto 111, an incubation space, or the leading incubation space for, but not for early stage, but for funded companies. So there I met almost as many interesting investors than at Collision. And then also a couple of others, Techstars, and so actually, I would say that it's almost as I mean for me, um, it is almost as important these after events as the, let's say, proper investor launch.
Yeah, I find that social events are as important. I know sometimes people say, no, I want to work on my product or we're just here for the event itself. But I believe that at the end, a big portion is what happens. You know that also in EO events, there's a big portion of learning day. You go to the learning, and then at 5 we go, we change, and then we go out. And a lot of the magic, the meetings, the connections are there. So you can't, I don't think you should separate them. And I would suggest people try and attend at least one or two events a year, but make sure you also attend the social events.
Exactly. And one hint here is there are always, let's say, these extreme networkers who do a Google sheet of all site events. And big events like Web Summit or Collision, it's definitely worth getting hold of these informal or unofficial Google spreadsheets where all the site events, the locations, and the RSVP are, because that just makes life easier. And if you then continue to share it with others, then others say, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about."
Yeah, so you go to an event, then what? What's your follow up process at an event?
That's a good question. So what I found out post-COVID, obviously nobody has business cards, so we sell to a rather conservative clientele, like which is retail and amusement parks. So they love business cards. Therefore, we also have business cards. However, nowadays is mostly LinkedIn with a scan code, and actually I have perhaps I added perhaps 100 people on LinkedIn. So obviously, also out of politeness, if there's not a fit with an investor, you would add them on LinkedIn. You never know. You see always each other twice in life. However, for the people who are really important, where I want to follow up, I would ask for an email. And then basically, in the end of the day, I would send emails with, in my case, the KPIs and the pitch deck and suggestion to catch up the next week.
So you do it the same night.
The same night or latest the morning before. And I always try to actually have a personal, obviously, touch, because there's always something like, for example, one investor at Collision, it was his birthday, and he told me that, oh, he doesn't have a lot of time because he needs to go to visit his family. So there are always facts which can make the approach a bit more personal, and which obviously, yeah, make the other feel a bit more special.
Yeah, that's always interesting. Wait, when we met, you told me you first joined the EO Accelerator and then you went into EO as a member. If it's okay, I'll just elaborate quickly what EOA is. So, the organization has an accelerator in many chapters around the world, and the idea is to help companies that have 250,000 yearly revenue, ARR, to scale to a million, which a million is the minimum threshold to join the organization. And I believe it's an amazing program, and it's structured around 3 years with dedicated learning and scaling and meeting other people and founders from different industries. It's kind of like a mini EO. Could you tell me a little bit about the experience for those who don't know what it is or how it feels?
Sure. So basically, as you mentioned, the threshold is 250K. In our case, actually, we had project work, which was exceeding that by far. So our first year, that's how we got into EO Accelerator. However, then with the first investment round, we had to do a scalable product. That's why it took us relatively long, let's say 4 years. Usually, I think it's designed to be 3 years. I think that some chapters want to even shrink that to 2 years.
Yes.
The duration period which an accelerator is supposed to be in that stage until you reach that 1 million bar, which makes sense because in essence, yeah, you want to accelerate fast and not slow. So in our case, actually, I was 4 years there. The first year, to be very transparent, I didn't get the whole picture because I was so into this business, and I didn't get the whole idea that the accountability groups is the core of the accelerator. So that's why the first out of the 4 years, I must say that I was just in the learning days and I didn't get the full picture. But then the second year, I obviously I joined accountability groups, which is eight around 8 members, which are in the accelerator group, mostly of the same city and at the same stage, and different non-competing businesses which have similar topics to resolve: fundraising, founding issues, legal issues, HR issues. And then basically you talk about business, but you talk also about personal development, and you talk about your relationships with your loved ones, maybe your partner or your family. And the idea is to bring you to the next level, literally in all of these three areas in life, like your personality, your relationship side, and your business side, and with an equal weighting on all these three areas, which I think is very important because some entrepreneurs obviously tend to overweight the business, but on a long term, that's not sustainable. So that's why I really like the program, and I can highly recommend it to anybody. I actually am recommending it to all of my entrepreneurial friends.
Here's a question. If you go back 4 years now, would you tell yourself 4 years ago, listen, you need to understand, you need to put in time to invest in yourself and not just be with your head down, business, no, I can't, I don't have time, everything looks important? You see it differently now?
Definitely, yeah. So I was actually so fortunate that I had a good good friend who studied with me industrial engineering, Julian von Blücher, who is actually, by the way, also an excellent interviewee if you still look for some out of the Munich chapter, because he was actually 1 year ahead of me, and with his tech recruiting agency, and he was promoting in his social media like the EO Accelerator. And basically, I saw that, and then I asked him what it's all about. He explained it to me, and he was always one of the coolest people in our university because he did also bike with a mountain bike over the Himalaya. So he was doing crazy things. So over the Indian mountains, and um, so that's why I valued his opinion quite a lot. And he said you must be in it if you meet this criteria, and then that's which actually made me join. Yeah.
No, I think on a personal level, it's interesting to see that as entrepreneurs building businesses, we're always so ingrained in the business. We don't have time, we don't want to do this, we can't leave, we can't go. But the more, I think, on a personal level, you kind of figure it out and then you structure it differently, and then you learn how to invest your time more wisely, if you get my drift. And then suddenly the business also accelerates. And I think that's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. So what people would call growth hacks or life hacks. I mean, in the end, it's not about how hard you work, but how smart you work and which great team you assemble, and how and all these soft factors, let's say, which are difficult to be taught in university, but is a literally learning by doing process. And if you have, whilst you are learning, because you're doing it, you're building your business, have a peer group to reflect what you're doing actually. That's actually the most valuable thing because if as an entrepreneur, it's sometimes very if you even though you might have co-founders, sometimes it's very lonely because you don't have a lot of people you can talk about in depth about the issues you're facing, and that's exactly what the EO accelerator is all about. So basically, to literally put your pants down and don't talk superficial things like, "Hi, how's it going? Yeah, it's all right," but really talk about the deep underlying issues. Um, May it be you're struggling with your fundraise, or you're actually just before insolvency, like all the bad cases nobody likes to talk about. All of them actually are really, really needed to be talked about. Um, and that's the great thing about the EO accelerator, that you can leave, the small talk at the door, and you can really go directly into a very direct and honest environment.
I like the fact that within the EO Accelerator, it's not just about the talking or the experience share, but it's also about moving forward and making sure you have certain KPIs and the day, once every quarter, you have that day. But you mentioned something about putting in the right people, the right places. Are you good at hiring?
Whew, that's a good question. Me as a CEO, I actually defined my role with three core topics like fundraising, strategy, and hiring, and perhaps even fundraising, hiring, and strategy in that sequence of importance. Um, and I would say that I'm getting better, but I'm definitely not perfect. So I still need to learn a lot. Currently, it's obviously a very tough situation in Germany, and I guess all around the world, with the war of talent. So we need to apply for every intern to work for us, even though we have a great immersive virtual reality product. Um, so, um, but hiring is a key aspect, and obviously, the younger the company, the even more important, because every person counts so much more um, when you're small. That means obviously the way to go is hire slow and fire fast. So I can't stress the fact that hiring slow is the most important thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Can you give us a life hack or two that you learned during meeting members from the accelerator? Two things that, like, you say, oh, I didn't know that, but that helped me, that you learned?
Yes, for sure. For example, I mean, with recruiting, actually, I was so fortunate to get a brief summary of the book Who. You might have heard about it. So, and not only a summary, but also a action plan. So literally, it was almost a handbook how to recruit, and actually I followed it. So I didn't question it because I trusted this fellow EO accelerator person. No, back then he was already EO member, but he was sharing this EO accelerating group. And basically there were very, very simple procedures. For example, one one was in the first interview to look for values, because values is the one thing which obviously you can't change. I mean, experience, some potential hires might have more or less experience, and that's something which you can change. But values, if there's not a value fit, that's almost obviously already a no-go. And then that's why he suggested to start with that to begin with, in order then not to waste too much time with all the other things. So that was a very, very interesting one, which we implemented and which helped us a lot. Um, and then along that route, actually, another one was just to, even though you did this process, the last step was just to have a trial day and then to see how it goes there, and then to pay also the interview, and because that gives you a more a work environment than just an interview environment. Yeah.
Epic fail that you would go back and change in the business?
In the current business,
Any business you want. Something you say, if I know what I should have done now, it would have been easy to fix. Do you have one?
yes, I couple of them, but one in the current business would be, I mentioned that we are spin out of this prestigious Applied Research Institute. So that sounds great, is also great. However, sometimes it also hinders you because you think that you have the greatest technology. However, there might be even much cheaper and better technologies out there. And the hesitation to just uh, say, okay, we developed this great technology. However, there's something which is much faster, much cheaper, much better, was there. So basically, looking backwards, that was one of our major failures to stick to the tech IP which has been developed for with a lot of effort and with a lot of money, instead of just trying out things. And I think if if you don't come as a spin-off from a prestigious research institute, you don't have that background, and therefore you're way more open to, you need to basically try out all things. So that's one thing which I would do definitely differently. So more experimentation, let's say, on the tech level and on the product level, and less sticking to, oh, we invented that, and we are so great, so that's why this must be superior than everything else.
How much ego goes into the decision making, in your opinion? A lot of entrepreneurs come with a big ego. Everybody wants to make a decision. How much do you think that impacts decision making in general?
In our company
And as entrepreneurs, I think.
as entrepreneurs, ah, um, yeah, that's an important one. So in the end, yeah, I think everybody likes to to be right, of course. However, if then the decision overall is wrong, I think then it's obviously not a nice thing to follow. So in our company, I mean, we try to do a lot of decisions data driven. So in order to try to obviously have more evidence, the earlier the company, the more challenging that is because there is no data, and the more mature, the easier it becomes. So obviously, then in the end, there's also an entrepreneurial gut feel and decision out of the stomach. However, um, yeah, I mean, pure out of ego, that obviously doesn't serve anybody, I think. Yeah.
So here's a question. You said gut. How many times you get that gut feeling and you know and you follow it? Because I sometimes say, I'm getting this gut feeling. I know, but I will still make the wrong choice.
I'm actually also along these lines with the tech decisions, where we have obviously a very strong tech department. I see myself also a little bit as a challenger to them because otherwise, yeah, there's no friction, no productive friction, let's say, to actually also look beyond of what our activities are. So in the very early days, as we were very small, actually, I was actually also doing the tech competitive analysis to see what others are doing and how we compare to that. And I still do that once in a while, just to see whether we are really cutting edge, because essentially we deliver virtual reality systems to out of home locations, and we always need to be more cutting edge than what people can experience at home in order to justify people to go out. So that's why it's important to obviously scan the in-home VR market, but also the out-of-home market, like the competitors. And and there's a fine line to obviously not jump on everything which we can see, but still make that call at some point. Okay, we need to change, for example, to another headset platform, because that is a radical shift from where we are right now. So, and when I have that feeling, I at least try to ping my team members to also get that feeling, and then them to investigate, and ideally they end up with the same results, or I mean, or at least I find it then already a success if the experts, let's say, follow up on that topic. Yeah. So, and then in this case, actually, it turned out that we are changing to a new headset platform. But yeah, sometimes you need to create that friction in order to bring others to yeah,
I
to
love
the
it,
point. Yeah.
the concept of creating friction and sometimes the discussion slash argument, because sometimes from that erupts a new idea, a new perception. I think sometimes people say, I don't want people to argue, I want everything to keep going. And I think that's not entrepreneurship in a sense, but rather defining something and then checking until you say, wait, maybe it's not what we said anymore, or maybe it's about changing our minds, which is allowed. A lot of people say, no, you made the decision. Why are you changing your mind all the time? Because it's changed. Things are
Hmm.
changing all the time, which is interesting. I have a personal question before we wrap this up.
Hmm.
First of all, I want to say thank you. I'm learning a lot, and it's nice to get the chance to talk to you a little bit about how you see things. And my personal question is, every time I see you, you're very, very well dressed. How
Oh,
much how much do you think that impacts your behavior, the way people look around you, look at you around? How do you perceive that? How important is that?
yeah, that's a good question. So I haven't sold my $100 million dollar company, so I guess I'm trying to use that appearance also, which obviously, and the presence, which also is built by just your clothing style, in order to reach that. Because once you already sold your 100 billion or $100 million dollar company, then I guess in a sense you don't need it. But um, I've just since we are so much on trade shows and we are a B2B company, I'm basically used to dress well for our sales trade shows. And then at some point, I obviously said, okay, why shouldn't I just do it the same way in the investor conferences or the startup conferences? Because obviously in startup conferences, it's more vice versa. Like it's cool and hip to wear sneakers and all that. And then at some point, I just decided, okay, it's my style just to dress well in order to give the other person also kind of a respect, um, and honor the time and all that. And yeah, let's see whether that works. So in the end, I like it. I like it, and and I think also it influences how you are, like how you act, how you talk, so to a positive manner, ideally. So, and that's yeah, that's say my style, but obviously that's several other styles to be successful in that regard. Yeah.
No, I completely agree, and that's why I was asking. I go to all these conferences and I wear T-shirts with my brand on them. So, and my sneakers have my brand on it. So there's a way of how I perceive things, and I really liked seeing you well dressed. There were some EO members from the Toronto chapters and other chapters that were also very well dressed, but in a stylish way. same color of suit with the glasses and everything. And I think it's a statement and it's a concept, whereas it does bring something different to the table, and then we can decide what we like to wear and how we like to be perceived and everything. But it was very interesting to me, so thank you for answering that. I think it's time I make button shirts with my logo on it.
Exactly, yeah. That's actually what we did. Yeah. So here in the tagline, similar like
Nice.
no,
Yeah.
like in this one, active social fun. We have on button shirts as well, and then you can,
Okay. After this session, I'll give you a call and you'll give me all the details, and I'll start doing some stuff on my
sure.
own. Jonathan, thank you very much for being here. Any last sentences, something you want people to know, and also where can they find more about you or your company?
Sure. The easiest way is indeed LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/Johnny Nowak. So JONNYNOWAK. And about Join the Spree is www.jointhespree.com. And yeah, I mean, we have 100 locations globally out there, mainly in the US and Middle East. So I'm happy to obviously welcome. So I have one policy that all EO members and EO Accelerator members can come with a team and play for free. So and some of them actually did so in Munich. So that's how holds true now globally.
I'll give it a shot. Why not? I'll be happy
Yeah,
to. Um, Man, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you just got back from Toronto, and I'm in Athens with EO members here.
yeah.
Thank you so much, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode of EOpreneur. And if you need anything, you want anything, feel free to reach out to me or someone from the team. And I'll see you at the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.